Hi, I'm Barbara West, and I'm speaking to you today from Colorado in the United States. I would like to thank Stephanie. She has pulled this online conference together in such a magnificent way. She's done a wonderful job. She has poured her heart and soul into this, and I just want to say a big thank you to Stephanie today. My husband and I have been homeschooling for over 30 years. We've lived in 7 different US states and our nation's capital, plus 4 overseas assignments: Stuttgart, Germany, Garmisch, Germany, Manila, Philippines, and Bucharest, Romania. We have 5 children, 2 of whom have already graduated from our homeschool and gone on to college and university with academic and music scholarships. One is now a very young executive with Abbott Medical Company. They're in the news because they can do a COVID-19 test in a matter of minutes versus days. Another is married and she lives in Turkey and owns and operates an English school there. We still have 3 at home. One is about to graduate. He did really well on his military entrance exams, so he could choose any career field he wanted. So he picked satellite communications with drones, and he leaves for the United States Marine Corps here in just a few months. We still have 2 at home that we are actively homeschooling. With the schools closing very quickly here a few months ago, many were thrust into educating their children at home. Now, they were tasked with an almost impossible job because the classroom curriculum that was being used in the schools was suddenly formatted for online and then given to the parents to implement at home. Now, that is a very difficult task, and for some families, it's impossible because this online curriculum isn't really meant to be done at home. And since it was a public classroom curriculum, they had to change the whole format. So many times for these families, it's a recipe for disaster. So they are crisis homeschooling and they need help. So where do they turn? The families that are already doing this at home, the homeschooling families. And I've seen some great encouragement given to these families from the homeschoolers. And I just wanted to read some of those to you today. One of them is that you can't replicate the institutionalized school in your home. So please don't try. Your children are going through trauma trying to do school at home. They've taken the classroom curriculum, formatted it for online, and now asking you to do it in your home. Your children are not used to being on the computer for that many hours a day. They're not used to being in their house with you 24/7. So you need to extend grace to them, and they do need to extend grace to you. So don't add any stress to this. Don't force things. Just relax. Take a breath. Keep them safe and healthy and in an atmosphere of love and encouragement. So this atmosphere is easily done in the home. Just don't stress and put undue pressure on your children to get this schoolwork done. Their education is not dependent on you checking off those boxes that you completed all these assignments today. That is not education, which we're going to learn more about today. When your children speak to you, look at them. Look right into their eyes. It is said that the eyes are the window to the soul. So you have a chance when they look at you and you look at them to make a heart connection, which is going to be huge. Marilyn Vos-Savant is a genius, and she writes a column here in the United States. And they ask her all kinds of impossible questions. But one that they did ask her was, what made you so smart? How were you able to learn so easily? And one of her answers was the atmosphere where she was learning was very warm and loving and encouraging and kind. Now, isn't that the kind of atmosphere that most of us have in our homes? So all you need to do to really help your children learn well is to create this atmosphere in your home. So even though it's extremely stressful right now with COVID-19 and your quarantine in your homes, you can still create this atmosphere of love and encouragement and care and kindness, which will help your children to easily learn. And to be honest, COVID-19 has not just affected those families that send their children to school, but those of us that homeschool. I've lost half of my classroom. And by that, I mean, I can't go to the zoo when I want to. I can't go to my co-op classes where we have chemistry and I teach logic. I can't just go to our sporting activities. I run a homeschool sports league with hundreds and hundreds of children. We had to cancel our spring season for flag football and our spring season for soccer. So none of those children, mine included, are able to get out there and play those sports. So I've lost access to going on my field trips, to the art galleries, to our lessons, everything that we have. I've lost access to that. So all of us have lost out on something with COVID-19. My goal is to encourage you in your homeschool endeavors in this next few minutes we have together. And homeschooling is a lifestyle. It's not something that you add to your to-do list. Oh, let's put homeschooling on there. It's not an activity that you put on your schedule. It is a lifestyle. And when you're going to go into the swimming pool, a lot of times we test the water, right? But eventually we get in. And that's what you need to do with homeschooling. You need to jump in. You need to immerse yourself completely in homeschooling. And when you do this, you need to prepare. Just like when you brought your children home from the hospital, you prepared your home, you got things ready for them. You need to do the same thing with homeschooling. You need to prepare your head, you need to prepare your heart, and you need to prepare your home. A lot of people think that they need to have a room set up to school, but really your kitchen table can be your classroom. I also want to encourage you about motivation. Those of us that thought about homeschooling and wanted to do it many years ago, we thought about it, we planned for it, we gave it lots of time to gel in what we were thinking about we wanted to do. Many of you haven't had that time. You're just thrust into it. So when you ask me a question about homeschooling, if you could give me a little bit of your motivation. Why are you homeschooling? Has it been something that you've thought about doing and now you're really going to jump in? Or are you just sitting on the side of the pool, just sticking your foot in for a little bit, just till you can get to this fall when the schools might open again? So know what your motivation is as to why you want to homeschool. Are you running to homeschooling? Many homeschoolers are homeschooling because of the situation in the school. By that I mean their child is being bullied, their child isn't being able to be challenged, or the school is too harsh for them. There are lots of reasons, but know your motivation for homeschooling. And then we're going to give some thought to the students. Now, when I say students, you think of your children, right? But you are really the first student in your homeschool. You are the number one student. Now, that might panic you because you think, I can't be a student and teach too. But you can. You can learn along with your students. You don't have to know everything to teach it. You can learn right along with them. Now, when you learn with them, you are showing your children that you are teachable. And isn't that the attitude that you want them to have? So if you model that for them, being teachable, oh yeah, let's learn this together, then they will model that back to you, and it'll be easier to teach them because they will have a good attitude on how to learn. Homeschooling is going to bring transition and change. It's not going to happen like that overnight. It's going to take some time. So when I say it's going to take some time, you need to unlearn some things. You have preconceived ideas on what you think school is like. You're going to have to de-school and unlearn some things. You most likely went to a conventional institutional school. So you have the idea there's a teacher up in front and you've got all these students sitting in desks and this is how it's going to run. But you're in your home and it's not going to run like that. So you need to get that scenario out of your mind because it's a different scenario when it's at home. So you have to unlearn those things. The kitchen table, at least for us, is the classroom. Sometimes the sofa in our family room is the classroom. And heaven forbid, sometimes the floor is our classroom. So your classroom can be just about anywhere. But you have to unlearn those preconceived ideas. And not only you, but your child. Because your child has been in this classroom situation as well. And they have some preconceived ideas. And one of them is they will say, oh, my teacher says, because they have their teacher up on a pedestal. Their teacher is the authority. And you need to change this because now you are the authority. And you need to help them make that switch so that you're the one in charge. And they will be submissive to you teaching them. So they need some time to undo what they've learned in school with this situation of what the school looks like now in your home. When I was in school and we would go on a field trip, we always had a buddy. Now, sometimes you held hands with them, sometimes you just stood next to them, but you had a buddy and they looked out for you and you looked out for them. Now, I want to encourage you, even though we are apart from each other, to find a buddy. Find somebody that can go through this new adventure with you. Now, it can be somebody that looks just like you. They might have the same number of children or the same age children, or it can be somebody that's completely different. They might have all girls and you have all boys, but you need to find somebody that you connect with, and then you encourage them and they encourage you. Get a buddy to walk through this journey with you. Now, there are two more small pieces of information that I think are critical to your success in homeschooling. The first one is you're going to need to spend some brain bites on what are you going to do with your little ones, your preschoolers, your toddlers, your babies. What's going to happen to them while you're homeschooling? So you need to think through this a little bit. And I'm going to give you some of the things that I have done that have worked for me. When I had little ones, I would have a high chair there or the baby seat, and they would sit in that and I'd give them little things to play with. They were pretty easy, but when they get a little bit more mobile, I had to come up with other things. So I would use a playpen, or I would put a blanket down on the floor. Sometimes, depending on where we were living, because you heard we moved a lot, I might put up a baby gate if there was a room right there that I could keep an eye on them. And then I would have little plastic bins. One of them might be army men. One of them might be a hammer with some pegs that they would hammer in. Some of them might be the lace-up cards. All different activities. But they would get one box at a time. And when they were finished with that box, they put everything back, and then they'd hand it back and I'd give them a new box. But you're going to need to think, for the age child that you have, what am I going to do with that little one while I'm trying to teach this one over here how to read or to do math? What am I going to do with the little ones? So just spend some brain bites now on what you're going to do and what area you're going to use for them, for their learning. Another thing that I want you to know, you need to go to bed. It's stressful right now. Your body needs rest. So pick a time, set an alarm, whatever you need to do, and when that goes off, go to bed because you need your rest. You need your sleep. And homeschooling is a lifestyle that you're going to need to prepare for. So just plan on some of these things now. So how do you move an ordinary child, your ordinary child, to being extraordinary? How do you do that? My children are all pretty ordinary, but as I told you, the two that have graduated, they are doing some extraordinary things. How do you move the child from one area to another? Well, an extraordinary child is not in a family that is checking off the boxes saying, okay, we got this done. Oh, we finished that. We got that all done. They are in a family where academics is not necessarily paramount. They have other things that are going on. They have other activities. They have life situations. They have experiences and circumstances and events. They learn how to interact and react. Like, how are they reacting with the COVID-19 right now and the quarantine? What are you teaching them? How are they? This is an extraordinary circumstance. How can they be extraordinary in this? In our family also, the curriculum does not drive us. We are driven by the Holy Spirit. My husband and I work together in conjunction with the Holy Spirit, in unison with Him, to work through what we want to accomplish in our life. So I'm going to give you just a few different things here on how we work with this so that we are engaged in living life and not just focusing on the academics or the books. Spending time with people. Now, I realize we can't physically be with people right now, but there are lots of great apps. You can record videos on Marco Polo that you can send to loved ones and friends. You can work with WhatsApp. You can make an instant phone call just like you would with Skype or FaceTime. So you can still interact with people. All my teens that are still at home, they share one phone. And on that phone, they have all their accounts. Now, as they reach different age levels, they get different privileges. So they first get an email address, and then they get to have Instagram and Snapchat, and then eventually Facebook. So they move through these different connections, these online connections. at different ages. So they learn to navigate them slowly. But that's how they can spend time with their friends, even though they're not physically with them. Another one, we like to be outside. So now might be a perfect time to start your garden. You've always wanted to garden, you've just never had time. Now might be a good time to start that and enjoy that time with your children. Other outside activities, we plan our camping trips. Now we live in Colorado where we have mountains that are really high. So they're called 14ers because they're 14,000 feet high. We try to hike one or two a year. So we plan which ones are we going to go to this year? Which ones are we going to try to hike? And do we want an easy one or we want all really hard ones? So you can plan that, set some goals. Maybe it could be something you'd like to do. Maybe this winter you'd like to learn to ski. So set some goals of outdoor activities that you would like to do. A third one, engage with the past. Now we can't physically go to a museum right now or take a class from an expert, but with all that's going on with COVID-19, one of the pluses is that all these museums have put online virtual tours. You can tour the Louvre. You can tour the Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. There are fabulous art classes being taught online by these wonderful artists. They're all free. There are concerts online. Last week, there was Phantom of the Opera online for free. I mean, I'm getting some great things online that I have never been able to get, and they're all free. I don't even have to pay for them. Don't forget your physical body. While you're stressed and you're at home, you need to get some exercise. Now, there's lots of fun things online as well, or you can just go outside and take a walk or a bike ride. But the online ones, there's challenges for planks and sit-ups and all kinds of things. So still keep your body in shape while we're going through this. Travel. I always encourage people to travel, but right now, that's really not an option. But again, they've got lots of great documentaries. They're putting things out there now that they didn't used to have. So you can experience some things and then you can make plans when this is all over. What would you like to do? And the last one to develop an extraordinary child is their character. I would like to encourage you to help your children develop good, godly character. An example of this is I was the general manager for a geochemical company. I would hire people, I would train them, and I found that I could teach them anything about chemistry. I could teach them all about the acids, atomic spectroscopy, grams. I could teach them everything I needed them to know about chemistry, except the one thing that they walked through the door with was their character. If they were slovenly, if they were not punctual and always late, if they didn't treat their coworkers well, if they didn't treat their workspace well, if they didn't clean it up, if they stole property from the company, I couldn't change that character quality. I would try, I'd send them into training. Eventually, they would be fired over poor character qualities. So extraordinary people have really wonderful character qualities, and that's going to last them and serve others for a lifetime. So those are 6 little tips of how you can get an ordinary child to extraordinary by exposing them to wonderful people and places and events and things in their lives. Another thing to help them is with you. Change your frame of reference. You've heard sometimes you're too close to the forest, you can't see the trees. So sometimes you need to take a step back from your child to appreciate who they are. They are unique. There's no one else like them. I actually have a lot of twins in our family, and the twins are not even exactly alike. They might look alike, the identical twins, but they are not. They're each unique. They're individual. They're a one of a kind. So appreciate who your child is. And I want you to see the potential that they have. I want you to look for it. If you're sitting there saying, oh, I can't see it, you need to look for it. You look for it with fresh eyes. Change your frame of reference. Another thing, do not compare. There are a couple different ways people compare. And right now, the teachers might be sending home, here's a checklist, and your child needs to do this. And you're looking, man, they can't do this, they can't do this, they can't do this. Or you might look something up online, what every third grader needs to know. And you look at it and you're going, they're finishing third grade, but they don't know this. That's just a checklist. It's something for you to say, oh, I think we might need to work on that. The other thing is that you don't want to compare them to another child. You don't say, oh, well, that child is this or my child is that. No one is better or worse than someone else. You need to use those things as tools, but you don't compare them. And you need to know that you are not behind. They are not behind. You are right where you need to be. I was trying to teach one of my children one time how to borrow and carry in math, and we worked for weeks on this, and they just didn't get it. They were crying and I was crying. So I closed those books and I put them on the shelf and I forgot about them. I didn't mean to totally forget about them, but that's exactly what happened. 3 months later, I went, I got to get those books out. We got to do math this year. And so I pulled them out, put them on the table, got everything ready to go, told them to meet me in there. And then I went in the other room to work with another child for just a second, get them going. I came back and they're just working on this math. And I said, how are you doing this? You don't know how to do this? Oh, yeah, I do. They had all the tools, but before they couldn't put them together. But now they were together. And now it made sense. And they just needed time. They had all the pieces. They just couldn't put them together. And the time that they could sit there, their brain was able to work that all out. So give them time to grow emotionally, mentally, physically, spiritually. That's all that child needed, was just some time. So you're right where you need to be, and you need to know that and be content in that. So change your frame of reference, look at things a little differently, stand a different way, and so that you can see the uniqueness of your child and how wonderful they are. Right along with this is focus on the positive. Every child's going to struggle with something. They're just not going to quite get it. And you've got this little tiny piece that they don't get, but they've got all this over here that they do get. But you know what we tend to do? We take that spotlight and we focus it on the one thing that they are having a hard time with, the one thing they might not be able to do, where they're struggling. Well, that spotlight makes it seem bigger, and our eyes are drawn to the light. So that light, we're looking at that, and we're going, wow, here's a big problem. We should focus the light on the areas that they can do things well. That's where you need to focus the light, because they'll be encouraged. They'll be going, oh, look at all this I can do. Oh, I can figure this out over here. I'll get this, because it's just one little thing. So you want to focus the light on where they are really doing well, not where they're struggling. And you might think they're behind, but they're not. They're just working on it. They just need a little more time. So I'm not saying that you completely abandon it. I'm just saying you don't focus on it. You work on it a little bit, but it's not the focus. It's not where you're putting emphasis. You're emphasizing all the things they can do well. So you're going to change your frame of reference. And you're going to focus on the positive. Now you're going to set a goal. And all a goal is a target. You know where you're aiming. Now, I have some children with learning disabilities. So I set that target up there pretty high sometimes. But if they're not shooting for the stars, if they're not shooting way up high, they're never going to hit it. If I don't set them goals that may seem impossible, they're never going to aim that high. They're not going to try for something like that. They're going to think, oh, they're going to put their sights lower. No, I help them to make their sights high. I give them the wings to help them fly up there, to soar up there. So at least we're shooting at something. It gives them confidence. Oh, mom thinks I can do this. Yes, I do. It might be tough, but I do. Now, just to digress a little bit with children with learning disabilities, I've gone to lots of experts, lots of people with lots of alphabets after their name, lots of letters. And I've been told many things. Oh, they're never going to have any friends. Oh, they can't play sports. They are never going to do this. I hear those things. I hear them, but I know that this child has potential. I see their potential. I know they're unique and one of a kind. For one of those children that I got some of those diagnoses for, they ended up being the captain of their football team. And they are a fabulous player. I mean, people tease that he could be the quarterback and throw the ball, run down the field and catch the same ball he threw. He is just an amazing athlete. So I'm told they won't be able to do this, won't be able to, you can hear it, but don't let that be the truth for you. See the potential in your child and appreciate what they can bring to the table. So now you've got your goal. Now you need a plan. How are you going to reach that goal? How are you going to get there? So the plan is just the route you take to reach that goal. So it's a preset plan that you can purchase, a full curriculum, or it's something that you can do on your own. You can come up with your own plan. I've done both. I buy something preset or I kind of figure out on my own. The longer that I've done it now, I like to figure out on my own. Oh, I think I'd like to do this. Oh, I'd like to add this. They're really good at that. I think I might like to do this. So I come up with my plan. Now, if you're an architect and you've drawn the plans for a building, you get your construction crew. You hand in the plans. The first thing they do is pour the foundation. They do a good job at that. So then the construction crew brings in the framing crew, and they're going to put up the wood and the walls and stuff. So they need hammers and nails. Those are the main tools they need. Well, what if you have somebody on the framing crew that shows up with a screwdriver? Now, my husband will tell you there have been times at my house that I have used a screwdriver to hammer in a nail. It's not the most efficient and it's not the best, but I can do it. But if you have a construction crew and they're supposed to be framing and they all need hammers to hammer in those nails and somebody shows up with just a screwdriver, they don't have the right tool for the job. The same is true for you. You need the right tool for the job that you're going to do. So you need to pick the right tool. When I began homeschooling, there wasn't a lot on the market. There was pretty much just what was used in a classroom that then I was able to use. So I would kind of tweak things and do things, and I changed stuff up quite a bit. I used things that a lot of people weren't using. So you might choose something that everybody doesn't use, and that's okay. I see a lot of people saying, what do you use for this subject or that subject? And people will list dozens of things. Then you need to do your research. Now, part of the tool part of it, knowing which tool to choose, is knowing which style you like. So you might be very comfortable with that textbook style because that's what you used in school. Remember, we're going to unlearn some things and change some things, and that might be what you're comfortable with, but it might not be the most effective way to teach your child, and it might not be exactly what's conducive for your home. So I want to give you just some different styles very quickly because this, again, is another whole session, but just so that you hear these words and you can start looking them up. First one will be a classical education. Now, this is where you're going to teach the child how they're eventually going to teach themselves, to learn for themselves. So after classical education, there's Charlotte Mason. Charlotte Mason is to use living books, real life situations to learn. Next one is Waldorf education. Children are taught how to figure things out for themselves. They might write their own computer programs. They might decide what's going to be in that textbook that they're going to use for this particular subject. That would be a Waldorf. Unschooling. This is living and learning are thought to be the same thing. And children do a lot of child-directed areas with unschooling. Unit study. Now this is a cross curriculum. You would pick a subject or a time period or a person, and everything's going to revolve around that. Everything is that. And this works really well if you want to really go in depth with one thing. Montessori is the best way for children to develop their full potential is to work at their pace, not what everybody else is doing, but their particular pace. And then there's online education, which many of you are doing right now. Now, for me, a lot of this, I'm eclectic. I use a lot of these things and I intertwine them and change them up. But those are just different styles. Those are not necessarily curriculums. Those are just styles. So the curriculum is the tool that you're going to choose to follow the plan that you're going to implement to reach the goal that you have set. So curriculum is just a tool. And you need to understand that you're going to need the right tool for you and your family. Curriculum can be fun. It doesn't have to be just plodding through the books to finish. There was a study done at Yale University, and they took two groups of children. One group did their normal academics. That's what they did, just the normal academics. The other group played games exclusively. They did no academics. They did board games, card games, physical outside games, educational games. They did all kinds of games, but that's all they did. At the end of a few months, they brought everybody back together and they gave them some tests. Now, in our education, we want our children, one of our goals is that they can think, they can problem solve, They can critically think, they can reason, they can use their logic. And that is the long-term goal so that they can make these decisions. So they took these two children, these two groups of children, and gave them these tests. Well, in the end, they found out that the game playing children scored super high on critical thinking, logic, strategy, and reason. How did that happen? How were they able to do that? Because they were using all their brain the whole time. And even though it looked like they weren't doing the academics and learning, they really were learning. And they were learning life skills. So they decided that game playing enhances all these attributes that you're looking for in the long run. And doesn't that sound like true education? But it doesn't look like real school, does it? Playing games all day. Now, I'm not advocating that you throw out the textbooks because I still use a math textbook, and right now we're finishing up chemistry. So I still do use textbooks, but for other things, I don't necessarily use textbook. I use real life books, books that we were before getting at the library, but we can still check those out on our devices. And then it doesn't look like real school because you're not using what the regular schools would be doing. Or if somebody says, oh, here's mine, and they show you this whole stack of books that they're using. So I want to encourage you to broaden your vision about what real school is. For homeschoolers, I know when I was developing my philosophy for education and schooling my children, I would shift back and forth. Oh, this is going to be real school. Oh, this is the fun. And I just kept shifting back and forth. And that does happen. But we just need to broaden our vision as to what real school is. So the day that you sit down and all you do is put puzzles together, or the next day you just play games, it's not that you're not learning. Your children are learning. Think about little ones, how much they learn when they play. The same thing happens even with teenagers all the way up. So you can help your ordinary child become extraordinary as long as you don't allow the curriculum to drive you. You are in the driver's seat. That curriculum is a tool, and you're going to use it to the best of your ability to help your child develop these critical thinking, logic, strategy, and reason skills. So you need to use it as a tool. So encourage relationships with different people of different ages, different backgrounds, different educational levels. Expose them to varying circumstances. Attend events when we can. Sign up for field trips. Get involved with co-ops. Get your buddy. Go through this adventure together. Real school is developing the children that God has placed in your care to their fullest potential. Thanks for joining me.